So that's going to bring us to our next segment, which is our pharmaceutical science alumni. And you will have a chance to ask questions from any of our speakers after the alumni session. And so our very first alumni that I'll introduce is Dr. Lilia Magnomedova, and she's the scientific director at Intervivo Solutions. So Lilia, why don't you tell us all about your career and your career path?
Thank you, Micheline, for the introduction. And I guess I'll start from the beginning. So I was born in 1980. That's a joke. I'm not going to go that way back. But I did my undergrad, graduate school, and postdoc all at the University of Toronto, actually. So I started my undergrad originally in biochemistry department. Then I switched to toxicology, and eventually I graduated with a pharmacology specialist from the University of Toronto. And my first year in pharmacology program, I got a chance to do a summer research project actually in Dr. Micheline's lab. And that's how I first got introduced to research. And I studied specifically diabetes, gestational diabetes, and drug pharmacokinetics as a short form of what I did. And I wanted to continue. I really liked it, and I wanted to actually go to grad school and work with Micheline. However, she was going on a sabbatical that year, so that didn't happen. But she made a great suggestion for me to interview with a new faculty member at that time, Dr. Carolyn Cummins. And that's how my PhD basically started. I talked to Carolyn. I really loved what she did. And I spent my next number of years doing PhD in Carolyn's lab. And specifically, I was studying metabolic syndrome and looking at new molecular drug targets to treat diabetes. And we did a lot of drug discovery, a lot of collaborative projects, which I might touch upon a little bit later. And my PhD was awesome. I really liked it. If I had to do it again, I would pretty much go to the same faculty and repeat everything. And I stayed for 2 more years to do postdoc with Carolyn to finish a couple of projects here and there. And eventually I sort of finally graduated. I finished my PhD, I graduated from postdoc, and I went to industry. And I currently work at the company called Intervivo Solutions, which is located in Mississauga. And it's a contract research organization, which is a CRO. If some people are not familiar, that aside from big pharma, there's also smaller pharmaceutical companies. And CROs are actually companies which big pharma subcontracts a lot of research to. So what we do is we do a lot of R&D, so preclinical studies for major big companies, small companies, pretty much anything in between. And I originally started as a bioanalytical scientist. So what I did was I made methods to analyze samples such as human or animal plasma, brain tissue, and whatnot, and using mass spectrometry. So that's that's how I started. And then I eventually got promoted to scientific director of the bioanalysis group. So now I manage the group of bioanalytical scientists, and I interact with clients directly and decide project feasibility and those kind of things. So this is like a really short form. So if you have any more questions, you can ask me later, and then I'll just let other speakers continue.
Yes, thank you, Lilia. And you guys will have a panel discussion right after this. So please stay on, Lilia. And so our next presenter is Eamon Chit, who is the Vice President and Head of the International Medical Region for Sanofi Pasteur. Eamon.
Thank you, Micheline, for the invitation. And, you know, I was getting really excited listening to all the research projects, I have to say. It's really a vibrant place, the University of Toronto, the City of Toronto. I owe a lot of debt to the intellectual community there, where sort of I cut my teeth. Like Lilia, I've also spent my education all at the University of Toronto. I started in Mississauga, at the University of Toronto, Mississauga, and the chemistry program there. I was heavily influenced by an academic, Dr. Willie Krall there, who is an analytical chemist. After my undergrad, I started in the Masters of Biotechnology program, also at the University of Toronto, Mississauga. It's kind of like a joint program between Rotman and the University of Toronto, Mississauga. We did 1 year worth of biotech methods and 1 year studying business management. And then from there, that has an internship component. I worked at GlaxoSmithKline in the R&D department, actually working on the development of pandemic vaccines back then against influenza. And the University of Toronto, Leslie Dan here, offered really one of the most innovative solutions that I'd ever seen for graduate education, where they allowed me to continue to work at the company and at the same time pursue a PhD. Initially, I thought, oh my God, how would I ever pull this off? But you get into it and it's so invigorating, and you feel that you are learning things that you can apply in the real world right away. So I actually, at the time, specialized. I was really driven by the administrative part of the pharmaceutical industry, and I studied health technology assessment at the under the supervision of Dr. Paul Grutendorst at the faculty here. That did wonders for me. Picked up a lot of skills that were very applicable. Moved on from R&D to work in health technology assessment. That led me out of Canada to the United States, and now from the United States to France, where I lead a team of physicians and scientists that are in what we call our international region here at the company that I work for, Sanofi Pasteur. And that's sort of like a big region that is basically everything except Europe and the United States. So real privilege to have had the opportunity to be at the faculty and in the great city of Toronto. And hope you folks really soak in this experience and find it helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Amen. So your next presenter is So-Young Lee, who's the Chief Scientific Officer for Mura Cannabis Corporation, and she's joining us here today. So-Young.
Elaine, nice to meet you all. My name is So-Young Lee. I think I started my PhD, oh my goodness, 2005, so pretty long time ago. And I had amazing time at PharmSci department. I was there for 5 years under Dr. Tigran Chilikin's lab. Had a great mentorship from him as well as previous postdocs. Absolutely loved my 5 years in grad school. Then I did a short postdoc at the Kids Hospital. Then, and that was my kind of my career shift drastically. So I wanted to try the industry, and then I entered as an analytical chemist at Apotex. So I started as a chemist role, got to really understand the GMP component. And later on, I still missed the protein, the bigger molecules. So I was able to move on to biosimilars. So this is a much bigger molecules than generic. So I was a scientific leader, looking after different molecules, different vendors, and etc. So, but during that time, I knew that I didn't want to stay in the corporation for the rest of my life. So during that time, I met my business partner and started cannabis company. So it's been almost 8 years. And, we started together and literally from scratch, incorporation, finding the site. I was, overseeing the construction, you name it. I did not know that, and I was able, that's what I had to do as an owner. I took on a lot of different tasks and wore different hats. And right now, I started the whole operation, not knowing what cannabis was about, but the cannabis cultivation, extraction, as well as different formulation of oil and topical. These are actually sold on their shoppers right now to medical patients. And then I also got to learn how to be a quality assurance person through this experience. So I managed the quality assurance department for many years. And also I'm the point of contact with Health Canada. All the licenses were written by myself, and all the amendments, it goes through me. And right now, my role literally transitioned out from the QA. I'm doing more science, meaning more R&D, different product lines, working with different scientists. So it's been a journey, but I did not know that from, I guess 10 years ago, I will be doing cannabis business.
Thank you, So Young. So our next panelist is Romel Tirona. Romel. Romel is an associate professor over at Western University. And I did see him here earlier.
Yeah, I had my mute on by accident. Hi, everybody. My name is Romel Tirona. I'm an associate professor at the University of Western Ontario, which is in London, Ontario. It's like two hours down from you guys in Toronto. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm probably the oldest in this panel. I'm a graduate of the original Bachelor of Science in Pharmacy program at U of T. And after I graduated from that program, I did a residency in pharmacy, hospital pharmacy, then worked as a hospital pharmacist. But I got kind of an itch to do research because during my pharmacy school days, I had a chance to do research as a summer student in Professor Sandy Pang's lab. And that really got me thinking about a potential career in research. So I went back to school and did a PhD with Dr. Pang. After I graduated, I did a postdoctoral fellowship in Nashville, Tennessee, Vanderbilt University. And after that fellowship, I got a job in the drug industry. I worked at Amgen, which is a biotechnology company based in Thousand Oaks, California. And there I worked in the Department of Pharmacokinetics and Drug Metabolism. And my job there was to kind of support drug discovery and development. But after 2 years at Amgen, I kind of started thinking about maybe I should give this academics thing a chance. So I had the opportunity to go back to Vanderbilt to become a junior faculty member there to try to become an independent investigator. And after a couple years there at Vanderbilt in the Department of Pharmacology, I moved back up here to Canada, to London, Ontario, to where I am today. And so I started as an assistant professor and was promoted now to associate professor. So my job here is like an academic. I do research and teaching for sure. And so that's my background. And I'm delighted today to be with you at this open house.
Thank you. Now I'm going to raise a few questions that can be answered by any of our panelists. And if no one's answering, then I'm going to tap you on the shoulders to answer. Okay, so the first question is, why is the University of Toronto Pharmaceutical Sciences a great place to pursue graduate studies?
I guess I can go first, maybe.
Okay.
So one thing I want to point out, like you've heard a lot about collaborations and like there's a lot of different areas of research, and it might be not clear right away how that's that important, but from my point of view, I was exposed to so many different areas of expertise, so to speak, in our department, from behavioral work to brain, neuronal work, pharmacokinetics, molecular metabolism, that it actually made my job currently really easy. So we get a lot of contracts from big pharma companies that work with different areas of research. So their R&D might be in immunology, might be in metabolism or cardiovascular disease. And from all the exposure that I got in our department, I basically could understand everything really quickly, and it was really useful. So I've never seen, like I've been to a lot of departments, physiology department, pharmacology department, and I don't think I've ever encountered any departments that have such a diverse faculty as ours. And originally when I started, I'm not gonna lie, I used to think like, why do I need to listen to this talk? Or why do I need to listen to that talk? But as you evolve, as you grow, you realize how important it is to be exposed to so many different areas of research. And I think that's just fascinating how many different areas we get in our small, relatively small department.
Eamon, would you like to comment?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I think the faculty is nestled in Toronto, and Toronto is a real gem. I've had the privilege, similar to Ramel, of living in a bunch of different cities, a few in the US and now in Europe. And really, Toronto is so unique, and the University of Toronto is really a gem inside Toronto. You know, you have access to some of the best minds in the world, and a faculty like this, which is really close to practice. It's a very practical faculty, I find. You know, aside from all of the scholarship that happens at the University of Toronto, which is a very prominent institution globally, everywhere in the world recognizes University of Toronto. You also have access to world-leading pharmaceutical sector. You have access to world-leading other industries also that are intimately tied to healthcare, very large teaching and research institutions. You know, looking back, it is a real gem. Sometimes in a common moment while you're in there, you don't really realize it so much. But from somebody who's had a bit of a privilege of doing the rounds, you know, it is really a very unique place on this planet.
Thank you. So-Young, do you have anything to add to this?
Those panelists actually kind of nailed on. Like, I must echo on Lilia's comment. The diversity is, she's right. Like, when I was listening to all these talks, like, it was so diverse. Like, some of them were, I'm like, oh my God, when do I even need to know this? But it actually really helped me out throughout my career. So you're exposed to so many different areas, and you know, when you actually listen, you actually learn something. So it's been wonderful, and I think that's the beauty of PharmSci program.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question. And that is, what were the most valuable skills that were applicable to your current position that you learned as a student at the University of Toronto?
Maybe I can start first.
Yes.
Okay. I think that I'm not sure if I'm cutting out. Am I cutting out?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I might mention, I guess in grad school, I had the great opportunity to do a lot of teaching. I was given the opportunity as a TA to actually teach some of the classes and some of the laboratory. So I think as an academic now, it really gave me the basic skills or the understanding of what it takes to be a really good teacher. And I really took all that experience to heart, and I use all those experiences today in the way I teach.
Thank you. Let's see, any other comments on this?
I can go again. So one thing I think that was really important, aside from the obvious critical thinking and whatnot, multitasking, I found that I learned a lot by collaborating with different people, different researchers, even grad students. And that's really important because you get to develop those interpersonal skills. And now as a scientific director, I get to manage a lot of scientists with different personalities, with different approaches. And I think learning that and during my graduate and postgraduate career was really beneficial. So you learn basically how to deal with people. And I think that's important. Yeah.
Thank you. And either Eamon or So-Young, you guys have something to add?
For me, I think like I learned I guess, from Tigran, how to be a good scientist. You know, the integrity has to be there. And this is something that became my core value from grad school. So
I'm going to ask the next question. I'm going to start with Eamon. So Eamon, how do you see the pharmaceutical sciences sector, whether it's academia, industry, or other areas, evolving currently?
Yeah, I think, thank you. And I think this is a sector that is thriving on knowledge right now. You know, it's a very complex sector. We are prone to automation like anything else, but it's one of those unique sectors that it is so complex that you really need hyper specialization these days. There's so much knowledge out there, and the key is around specialization. So it's really you know, the knowledge economy on a pedestal. And you know, sharpening your mind and learning a craft at the university here can really do wonders for your career, because the whole sector thrives on knowledge. It really follows thought leaders, and you know, innovation is more and more, and discovery is more and more happening within the university ecosystem. And then you have the chance of taking on some of these innovations in larger corporations and industrializing them to scale, and getting them to patients and others. So you know, it's always been a knowledge economy, but I really feel it's an area of hyper specialization. And if you're motivated talent and you develop yourself steadfast in the right way, you can really lead. It's really the innovative ideas, and that specialization is really leading right now, more so than corporate structures even. You can see that very easily with the pandemic. You had Moderna, which was a startup, and BioNTech, which was a startup, and they really changed the world. And you know, money and corporations and everything kind of lined up behind them. And what did they do? They innovated in mRNA at the bench side. You know, so you know, that's kind of a little bit of my perspective here to you folks.
Thank you. So Young, do you have anything to add to that?
well, I left pharma a pretty long time ago. So from the cannabis perspective, I guess I wanted, well, there are a lot of students here. So the cannabis industry still, like, we hire a lot of students from science. A lot of scientists who graduate from farm side programs actually already in cannabis industry already. And, you know, they play big roles there. And I actually met formal people from, I think, Christine Allen's lab, and we actually worked together on different product development and analyzing different things. So it's, you know, the farm side program actually done a remarkable job just pushing out great students.
Thank you. Romel, do you have anything to add about the from the academic perspective, or pharmacist perspective, I should say?
Yeah, I think, you know, my first job was, I was a pharmacist, but after I did all my training, my first job was in the industry. And I think what really got me the foot in the door in the industry was that I had this specialized knowledge. And I think that's really important, that you get to learn something really deeply that the industry requires. And that really got me in there. But after I got into the industry, what I realized was, like, I did know this kind of narrow field, but what really made me unique was that I knew a lot about a lot of different things because of my experience in the pharmacy school. So I was in pharmacokinetics or drug metabolism, but you know, I had to take courses in pharmaceutics and other courses at the university. And so I could really converse with everybody else in the industry. Like I could really talk the talk, and that gives you ahead, get you ahead in the drug industry. All those kinds of the diversity of the knowledge that you'll learn at the graduate school at U of T will help you not just in industry. I use it today as an academic because, you know, I do have insights as a practicing pharmacist, for example. I get it. I don't know how drugs work. And so I use that in the kind of the translational research that I do today.